Only one thing to say about day 4 of the impeachment inquiry. Explosive. I'm going to make this quick because we have to watch the debate, but also because I didn't see as much as I wanted to see today. So I'm going to just tell you what I saw, and then I did follow along on the plane on social media. So first it started with, the ambassador to the EU, he had nothing to do with the Ukraine. I know he's sorry about that. Trump pulled him in. Gordon Sondland was just a big donor to his inauguration committee, and he ended up being an ambassador. Now, don't get mad at Trump for that. That's something that everyone does. I remember when President Obama appointed Caroline Kennedy to Japan, I believe it was, and everybody was in an uproar. That's just what you do. When you get support, you pay people back with ambassadorships. But anyway, he got it for the EU. He came in, did his deposition, then some other people came in and testified, so he made a little adjustment to his deposition, and he came in this morning, and his wife must have said to him last night, look, you better not get on the bus. You better go find an airplane and bring everybody down. Because Ambassador Sondland got on there and told everything he knew. If I had to sum up the key things he said, and I'm looking at my notes, one thing he said was everybody was in the loop. And when he said everybody, he didn't just say everybody generically. He started naming names: Mulvaney, Pompeo, Perry, and then the most important person, Pence. Now, let me tell you about Vice President Pence. Leave Pence alone. Are you surprised to hear me say that? That's because there's no way they will impeach Trump and Pence. There's very little chance that they will impeach Trump anyway, but at least they will know that Pence will take over because he's first in line to become the president if something like this were to happen. Second in line is Nancy Pelosi. If Trump goes down and Pence goes down, Nancy Pelosi would be the president. But in order for Trump and Pence to go down, Republicans would have to vote for that. So let's get out of our heads. Remember how this really works, okay? So leave Pence alone. I don't like him, but I want Trump removed. And I do believe Pence knew all about it, but he's kept his hands pretty clean. One thing that's interesting about all the people that the ambassador named today, all of them sent in statements saying that he was lying. Now, let me tell you something. One of the reasons his wife got on him last night and told him he better sing today was because Roger Stone was just convicted of lying to Congress. So you know that he did not want to go down that same road. His wife was like, look, we're rich. We were doing fine without that dude in the Oval Office, so you better go in there and tell them what you know. So all the people who were saying that he lied today, he was under oath. Let all of them show up and take the oath and see if they will say the same thing. He said everybody was in the loop. Yes, there was a quid pro quo, even though I don't want us to use that term, and that they were all operating with Rudy Giuliani, who they did not want to work with, but they were all operating under the direction of the president. Now, it's very interesting because a couple of weeks ago, Trump was talking about how wonderful a man this ambassador was. Today, he got on the White House lawn and said, I hardly knew him. I can't even remember his name. We never really ever talked. You know, doing what he does all the time. So that was really the testimony of this morning. The Republicans did make some points with him later on. The strongest part of his testimony today was his opening statement. under questioning, he kind of backpedaled a little bit, saying, well, you know, Trump never told me directly. I presumed. No one ever heard him say quid pro quo. Nobody ever heard him say that he was holding the money. But here's the thing. The money was being held. And they all knew that they had to say something. They had to go out and make a public statement about Joe Biden in order to get the money in the meeting. So if it wasn't coming from Trump, who was it coming from? So that's the quid pro quo. Come on. They needed a meeting with the president because that says something to the world. They needed the $400 million in military aid to fight Russia, where 14,000 Ukrainians, I found out today in a testimony, had already been killed. So they needed that. And all they had to do was to make a public statement that they were going to investigate Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Burisma, and just make a statement on CNN. They didn't even have to do the investigation. Trump just wanted to be able to say, Hillary and her emails, Biden and his investigation. So that's what they wanted to do. So they did make some points by pulling back, but all you have to do is say, if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, you know. Okay, this afternoon was also very interesting. Laura Cooper and David Hale. Laura's in the Department of Defense, and so they are the ones that give the money, that kind of put it all together and that say to Congress and then Congress to the president what each of these countries need. Now, one of the things that a country has to do in order to get money is to prove that they're not corrupt, because there's a lot of people out there who are corrupt. And so the Department of Defense had already cleared. They had totally cleared the Ukraine and said, yes, give them the money. The money's fine. And Trump still held it. But the biggest thing that she said today, and I think it just went over everybody's head because we've been doing this for such a long time today, was that the Ukrainians knew that the money was being held from July. Most people weren't sure. Most people said that they thought the Ukrainians didn't find out that the money was being held until the end of August, which is still bad. It doesn't matter. He didn't give the money till September 11th. But she said when they were on the phone with Trump, when the president of the Ukraine was on the phone with Trump, they already knew the money was being held up. So they knew. So that takes away one of the Republican talking points. And David Hale was also very interesting. He is the third in line in the State Department under Mike Pompeo, which is so interesting because, you know, Mike Pompeo wants to be president, and today just messed up his chances, I believe. He was going to slip out of the Secretary of State, slip out of that department, go home to Kentucky, run for senator. Everybody's pretty sure he would win. Hope not, but everybody was sure he would win, and then he'd be set up for 2024 to run for president. But now that he's going to be part of this impeachment scandal, I hope his whole career is ruined. That's what happens when you lay down with the dog. You get bitten by fleas. Okay, so that was it for today. Sunland came and said they all knew it was a quid pro quo. Stop saying this was some type of back channel. I got emails and other receipts to prove it. That's the summary of what he said. The Laura Cooper said, oh, and remember Laura Cooper, when she gave her deposition, that was when the Republicans ran into the skip room and they had pizza and all that stuff, and she waited for 5 hours until they got over their tantrum. She said they knew the whole time that the money was being held from them, the Ukrainians. And David Hale was just talking about how we give money and how this money should not have been held up. For whatever reason it was held up, it shouldn't have been held up. So today was pretty explosive. Now we have the Democratic debates tonight, and then tomorrow, I cannot wait We have Fiona, I think that's how you pronounce her name, Hill, who is a Russian expert, who was the one that put out the word that John Bolton was calling this a drug deal. And then, I'll know his name tomorrow. I can't think of it right now. I think I wrote it down. The gentleman who heard Trump on the phone with Ambassador Sondland. So another explosive day tomorrow, I expect. And then that's all we have for now. I don't know what they'll do, or if they're going to just go straight to drawing up the articles of impeachment, which would leave this committee and go to the Judicial Committee. This is getting interesting. So have a good night, and remember to subscribe to us at Politics, Prose, and Pop Culture. One of these days, I'll talk about some prose or pop culture. But for now, for me, it's all politics. Bye.